I am Vinky, and this is the Working Athlete Podcast. Here, I talk to working athletes from all walks of life and experts from various sports to provide you with inspiration, training tips, time management, and lifestyle advice. If this is something that interests you, please make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any future episodes. Today's guest, Manik Taneja, is a software engineer and one of the founders of an outdoor adventure company called GoodWave Adventures. GoodWave Adventures trains people in kayaking and organizes events like Malabar River Festival, among other things. In this episode, Manik shares how he got into kayaking by accident and how it eventually come to be central in his life. It was really interesting to know about the growth of kayaking as a sport in India and how the events like the Malabar River Festival are contributing to that growth. His story is an example of how, if you follow your passion and stick to it year after year, you can build your tribe from the ground up. On this podcast, we have typically talked to cyclists, runners, and triathletes. But it was really interesting to know about a sport like kayaking that is completely out of the ordinary. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. This episode is brought to you by the Bike Affair. If you are in search of a one stop destination that caters to all your cycling needs, our today's sponsor, the Bike Affair, is the perfect place to check out. I have known the founders of the Bike Affair, Krish and Gokul, personally for nearly 15 years now. In fact, my first century ride was with Krish back in 2008. They are both exceptional human beings and entrepreneurs that believe in providing exceptional service to their customers. And it shows. With over 14 years of experience, the Bike Affair has established itself as a trusted source offering honest advice and exceptional service. They are offering a special treat for the listeners of this podcast. You can enjoy a 10% discount on your first order by using the code BikeyWenky on their website. So if you are in Hyderabad, visit their store in Kondapur, or if you are anywhere else in India, shop online by using the link thebikeaffair.com. I will leave the link in the show notes. Now, enjoy the podcast. Welcome to the Working Athlete Podcast, Manik. It's a pleasure having you on the show.
Thanks, man. It's a pleasure to be on the show as well. I've heard a lot about your show, and I've heard some of the podcasts with some of the friends that you've done. So yeah, it's a privilege being here, and happy to talk to you about my experience.
Great. So, Mike, I came across you, GoodWave Adventures, the Malabar River Festival, the kayaking scene, all by kind of accident.
Right.
I want to know more, use this opportunity to know more about the sport and your experience and everything.
Okay.
But before we get into that, let us start with something that I always start with.
Mhm.
What's your relationship with sport growing up?
Well, I've always been a sportsman, right? So I think from a very early age, my parents would encourage me to take part in sports. So all throughout school and college, whatever avenues were available as far as sports were concerned, I always partook in those. And I used to run for Maharashtra State as well, to
Wow.
run the 400 meters at that time. Um, yeah, and then once I finished, and then I used to play football for university during my time. So it's growing up. Sport has been very important in our childhood, and both for my brother and I. My brother used to almost play at Ranji level. He never got there, but because of injury, but he was slated to almost play cricket. For at Ranji level.
Right.
But it was part of our culture, and I used my fiercest and my closest competitor at that time used to be my brother, right? And my dad used to actually make bets on us to see who would outdo each other. So yeah, and then once I finished university and started working, kind of lost that a little bit, because you moved to the city and then getting involved in the job and pursuing whatever dream you had, or whatever dream that your parents wanted you to pursue, rather, that took more importance. And then somewhere down the line, I kind of rediscovered, that what I really wanted to do, and it kind of, even I discovered it by accident. My brother also, he ended up doing a lot of outdoors during his time, and he used to climb, used to do a lot of high altitude climbing. So that used to really inspire me, just to go out and see what is there. And I stumbled upon kayaking by accident, right? And then once I saw it, it kind of really fascinated me, and I really wanted to try
How
it out.
what how did that happen?
So it
Accident.
actually it happened because I just finished my masters in from Amsterdam, and then I moved back to India. So, and I moved back to India. I came back saying, "Hey, man, I need to, like, rediscover this country, because when you live abroad, then it's like you learn about your country from a very different perspective, because living here, if you live here, you don't go see the sites that are next door,
True.
right?
True.
You won't really care about Kavan Park or whatever the Vidhana Swadha so much. And then when you go outside the country, people tell you, "Hey man, the Himalayas are so beautiful, and the Ganga is so amazing, so or Ladakh is so amazing." So then it kind of like, and then you say, "Hey man, this is all
I never
happening in
been
my."
to these places.
Exactly, right. So that's in my 30 years, I never also went there, right? But soon as I said, okay, I'm going to finish my masters, I'm going to have some time, to do something of my own, or before I start working again, I'm going to have like a month and a half. So let's do some exploration. So then I did a bike trip, right? Like a mountain bike trip, but what they called mountain biking at that time. This like stupid Manali to Kargil or whatever, Manali to Leh that everybody does, right? It was cool, it was also very stupid, I mean, the organization was like crap, now that I look back, there was absolutely no safety. There was, it was a total shit show from the part of the organizers. I won't name them, but it was obviously something that they were running cheap, and they wanted commodity. I mean, basically quantity over quality.
Mm-hmm.
From there, in fact, I went on a rafting trip on the Ganges. Right, so I did a
Okay.
3-day rafting expedition, and on that rafting trip, what I had in my head was that I would really learn how to maybe navigate a boat, or even like understand how to read a rapid, or really understand, if you are on top of a rapid, how do you get from one point to the other. But I think 2 days into I mean, one day into the thing, I realized it's not happening, because, the guy who, when you're rafting, there's a guide who gives you commands, and, you go forward, you stop, and then, most of the time you drift, and you're not really learning anything, it's just like a kind of a joyride to make you feel happy. I mean, it's still fun, you still enjoy a lot. And then the Ganges is extremely beautiful, and some of the campsites there are, something that there are very few places in the world that you can experience, like going down a river for multi-day kind of a thing. That's it happens only in a very few places in the world, right? North America, some parts of Africa, parts of South America, and India is one of them, where you have these really long rivers that have rapids and flow through these dense jungle, and you camp out in beaches that are only accessible by the river. So that's it. It's a great multi-day experience. But
What is a rapid?
a rapid is basically any fast-moving section of water, right? What you
Okay.
see, or when I mean, it's like the name suggests, rapid.
Yeah.
So wherever there's some gradient in the river, where the river is like losing gradient, and you see a lot of white, right? So that
Yeah.
basically is a rapid.
Right. Okay.
And then the rapid has different classes, right? From goes from easy to like super hard.
Mm-hmm.
So it's similar to how mountain biking also is. When you grade trails from a blue, black to a green, red, whatever,
Yeah.
or double black. So even rapids have like a grading like that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, but yeah, that's when I saw some kayakers, for the first time. So usually when you have a raft trip, you have a kayaker in a boat who's in a single kayak, and they are, usually there for safety in case somebody falls out of the raft. They can go rescue them quickly. That's usually why the kayakers accompany a raft trip. So I got really fascinated by that, and I asked the raft guide that, hey, how do I learn this? So then, I mean, at that time there was nobody teaching that. A lot of the kayakers who were in India at that time were foreign people who used to come here and work for a season, work with rafting companies as guides. So there was very little infrastructure for people learning how to kayak, or
Right.
there were maybe at that time handful of kayakers in India, about 20 or 30 kayakers at that time when I started.
Mm.
So yeah, but these guides told me that there is a way to learn it if you really want to learn it. And then 2 years later, that raft guide, who's now like a really good friend of mine, he went and started his own company. So he sent me a mailer saying that, hey, I've started my own company, I'm doing all these raft trips in different places. So I mailed him back that, hey, if you're going to teach me how to kayak, then I'll come. I'm not coming for your raft trips. So then he said, yeah, okay, I can set up a rafting course. I mean, sorry, a kayaking course for you. It was a seven, and he said, we need 5 people. It's going to be a 7-day kayaking course. And I wrote to him, well, I'm in, but I need to. He wrote back saying, I need to get back. I need to get another 4 people. So anyway, so long story short, 5 people did sign up, but at the end of the day, I was the only one to show up on that day. So so it was a fairly interesting experience, and I think I was not mentally prepared for what was to follow. But having come there, and I'm a quite a stubborn guy, right? So I think I took the kind of beating I took in the water for the first 4 days or 5 days of the course. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. I wouldn't wish that on myself. It was quite a beating, but I think at the end of the sixth day, I woke up. When I went to sleep, I was saying like, yeah, fuck this. I'm done with this sport, right? It's not for me. It's water up my nose, and I've just been swimming all these rapids, instead of kayaking them. So what's the use? But yeah, I think on the sixth morning, on the seventh morning, I woke up and I said like, hey man, I think I've maybe I've done the hard part, so maybe I just need to take one step, just one more step, right? So I kept egging myself on like this, and then yeah, after a lot of trying and after a lot of failing, I finally managed to learn how to kayak, right? So I think that was like, I mean, I took it on just at the end of the day, like, saying, hey man, you started something and you got to finish it, you got to see it through, right? Get to some level where you can at least say that you know how to kayak, right? So
Right.
it will be equivalent of saying you know how to ride a cycle, right? So
Yeah.
it's something like that, right?
Yeah.
And it was pretty basic, just to get to that first level. But and it was, yeah, it was difficult, but once you got there, then you always, how it is, that it's these kind of things are addictive, and you want to get to the next level, and you want to get to the next level, right? So and then you enter that cycle, and then you're trapped, right?
Yeah. Right.
So then you can't do anything about it, you just let it be, right? And you just give in to the addiction, because at the end of the day, I think people like me have a certain personality which is a very addictive personality, right? And once you get addicted to these things, then it's like Hotel California. You don't leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's a great way to kind of get into the sport. But by this time, did you start working, or how was the scene there?
So I was always working throughout. I was
Mm.
probably in my early 30s when I learned how to kayak. So
Mm.
that generally is also a pretty late thing to start, like a skill-based sport. So the way that I see kayaking, mountain biking or skiing, all these are fairly they're technical sports. So technical is like something that's very loosely
Right.
used, but what it actually comes down to is that it involves technique,
Mm.
right? And that technique is something that you hone for the rest of your life, right?
Right.
So even if you ask like a kayaker or somebody who's a mountain biker or a BMX, somebody who does BMX, they will never say that they've like know everything about the sport, right?
Right.
So even if you are like top of the, I mean, the top 10 in the world or top 2 in the world, there is always room for improvement. There's always a new
Exactly.
trick that you can learn. There is always a new river that you can do. So every year, people are running slopes or rivers that, 1 year ago people thought it was not possible. It's not humanly possible with the kind of equipment that they had or the training that they had. But every year, we are pushing the boundary. We are getting better, and and the equipment also is evolving. Right? You would know, being like a roadie athlete, that every year things just get better, and in terms of like what your body can do and what equipment can do, right? And the training methods also available, and there are also people pushing you from all sides, and in a way Instagram is also, and all of these things are also like egging you on to like maybe do better, because you see somebody else cracking something that you've been trying to crack, and suddenly that's your motivation to go harder at it, right? So yeah, it that was that was then, right? So it's I was in my mid 30s when when I started to learn how to kayak, and then to now the thing was, to every time I need to go kayak, I need to go to Rishikesh, right? So because there was no kayaking anywhere in the south or anywhere like south of Rishikesh, there was absolutely no kayaking at that time. So I would make excuses to try to go to Delhi or try to go north, so that I could eke out like a couple of days from that trip to go and find some time to get into the water, right? And it was sometime around then that I came across like a bunch of people like me. Uh, you know Sohan, right? Sohan, the climber. So at that time, he had also started kayaking, or he was kayaking. He had just returned from the US, and there was like the small group of people that had formed, that used to just go out and go to some rivers in the south during the monsoon, in Coorg and Sakleshpur side and Agumbe side, whatever rivers that they could found, that they saw any white water, these guys would jump in, and they would try, and they had like the spirit of exploration. And I found like this random post by Sohan, I can't remember that forum, but I kept I don't know how many times I would have searched for kayakers in Bangalore, kayakers in South India, or on Google, just trying to connect with the group. And then I came across this one post where he had talked about some river, and I remember he had his handle. I can't remember the forum, but I remember his handle. It was called Bent Gate something. Okay. So, and I said, like, damn, there are people in Bangalore who are kayaking, and that's how I connected with him. I found him on Facebook and say, hey, I've also learned a little bit how to kayak. I want to join you guys, And then he was like really pleasantly surprised, that there was another guy in the mix who knew something, who knew what they were trying to do, or connected with them. So that is how I basically got into their group. And that basically was the group that called themselves the Southern River Runners, right? SRR. It was a group of 5 people, and we were on every weekend. We used to go out, and we used to like find some rivers on either Google Earth, or or some local knowledge. They would say, "Ha, yeah, this river has some rapids. Why don't you go check it out?" So with very little information, we used to do like these very stupid trips actually. So leave on Friday night, after work, 9:30, 10. We would like get there, drive 7, 8 hours, get there like super early, like 3, 4 a.m. Have a drink, go to sleep. Maybe just sleep for 2 hours. Then you're waking up at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, getting into the water, and we had no idea like what that river was, how hard it is, and though we like as a group, we were still responsible. We would still give each other safety, and try to like not make a complete meal of it, but we had some very 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 interesting experiences, and I think that was very important, because that really stoked that spirit of exploration, that every day or like every other weekend, whenever you went out with these guys, you knew that you were in for a like a man, like it's going to be an experience, right? I don't know whether it's going to be a great experience or a bad experience, but it's going to be like some kind of experience, right? Whether you're going to get your ass kicked or what, but at the end of the day, we knew that once we were all together enjoying a beer, you'd have a big smile on our faces, be like egging each other, like who swam, who nailed the rapid. So I think that camaraderie that developed in those early days was very crucial to like where I am right now, right? Because I was inspired with these guys, that they would just leave everything, and then and we would only give like some half information to our families of where we were and what we were trying to do, and somehow we made it through all of that. So it definitely felt like being these bunch of warriors who kept going to the unknown every 2 or 3 weeks to get their ass kicked, right? And yeah, that kind of really shaped the initial exploration, and it was that spirit of exploration to just find something new. Even now when I look at some of the rivers, I think those was like really easy. At my level, I think, oh, this is like a class 2 or a class 1 river, but just to do it for the first time, because nobody had done it the way that we had done it, was still like a massive achievement, and you felt like you had rediscovered or explored something that has never been done in this country. And that's how we like really came to understand the kind of potential for adventure sports, not just kayaking, but any kind of adventure sports that the south of India has to offer.
Right.
We've been blessed with this amazing, this range of mountains, the Western Ghats that stretches all the way, from Bombay to Kanyakumari, and everywhere you go in the Western Ghats, there is something amazing to discover. Whether it's like hiking routes or climbing routes or mountain biking routes or kayaking routes, there's just like so much of exploration that still has to be done. So that was how we got into it. And
Nice, nice.
yeah.
So, I mean, the connection to Sohan is really interesting because how I knew Sohan was through mountain biking.
Oh, right.
So
Okay.
we back in 2011, I joined him for a few trail rides.
Okay.
And
Okay.
one of those trail, like you were saying, right? We just go decide that this is what we are going to explore today, and I still remember like it was like yesterday, because the experience was so unique. We were lost in the jungle with
Right.
like 10 punctures.
Right. Right.
So like those things you never forget,
Yeah.
right?
So Sohan has been doing this with a lot of people. Right?
Yeah.
Hopefully now he's become a lot better with his management.
It's
I mean, if he's of his like group management. So, and if you're listening to this, not feelings. Yeah.
You can tell that he is that kind of adventurer, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah.
And I think he now found his
His real passion.
calling with
That's
climbing.
true. That's true.
But
Yeah.
so how did this that's how you got started. But how did this Malabar River Festival start?
Okay.
What is the genesis of the GoodWave Adventure?
Right. So I'll talk about GoodWave first.
Yeah.
Right. So when we started kayaking, we were joined by this another gentleman from Italy. His name was Jacopo. He lived in Chennai for many years before he moved back to Italy. He's been now living there for the last 10 years. But he spent a lot of time in India. And he and I had connected again through Facebook or through some common friends, some reference that he also is getting into kayaking, and there's a group in south of India that is exploring rivers. So we connected, and he became part of Southern River Runners. And once we started really exploring rivers around, and our skills got a little bit better, once we started hitting up to class 3 and even attempting some class 4 rivers. The classes go from 1 to 6, where 6 means that it's not physically possible to run that river. If somebody actually runs it, it gets downgraded to 5, right? So 5 is where if you mess up, then there are consequences like that can be extreme. So like class 3, class 4 is approaching those kind of consequences, right? So we at that point we started to know what we were doing, and we started gauging the difficulty of rivers correctly, started having safety protocols. But there's one thing that we didn't account for. Was the forest department, the local administration. So every now and then we would be marched to the forest department's head office, or local administration, or police would catch us saying, "What the hell are you guys doing here? Why are you guys? These are dangerous rivers. They have rocks and they have falls." And we would say, "Yeah, man, this is what we are here for. This is what you're looking for." And these guys think that, oh man, these guys are crazy. They're going to just get themselves in trouble. And and they would just march us, saying, no, no, you can't go in these rivers, and there's march us to the some government office where we would end up spending a lot of time trying to explain what we are trying to do. And most of the times we would end up writing an apology letter saying, okay, fine, we are sorry, we will never come here, just to get out, or face getting arrested for 2-3 days and all of that. So these arrests actually became more and more common, and then Jacobo and I said, well, if we really want to keep doing this, then we need a solution, right? So we need to establish a way of getting more people into the sport. Because if there are 5 or 6 people who are always going to be there, it's not going to cut it, because they're always going to think that these are five crazy idiots who are always trying to get themselves into trouble. But if there are maybe hundreds or 500 people who are partaking in the sport, then maybe people will be more accepting about it, and they will understand that there is some kind of sports potential with this activity that we try to do. So that is how we decided to start GoodWave, because we said GoodWave, what we need to do with GoodWave is have a way of training people, right? Have like a proper way, like how they do it in the West. That how, if you want to learn how to, let's say, mountain bike, or like get into a new skill, that's scuba diving or skiing, then there is a proper instruction program of
Right.
what you need to do. And I didn't learn it that way, right? It was for the way that all of us learned it was like, here's a kayak, get in, and then you figure out how to survive with this kayak, right? So it was more a survival game rather than having a structure. So that is when, like, Jacobo and I, we decided to go to the US and actually do certifications that would make us instructors, right? Make us official whitewater kayaking instructors. So that is how we started. So we went and got these certifications, where we said, okay, we are whitewater kayak instructors, and we can teach people how to learn the sport the right way, right? So that is how GoodWave started. The other big problem at that time was basically equipment availability.
Right.
Like, where do you get a kayak from? Where do you get like all the gear that you use, which is your helmet, your paddle, your life jacket, all of that? None of that was available in India. So
Right.
everything had to be brought in from Europe or the US. So we would keep asking friends, hey, how people even now do it? You break a lever, your Shimano lever or your SRAM lever, and nobody in India has the part that you want. So then you're asking somebody to get it for you and all of that, right? But with kayak, so at least now there is some sort of ecosystem in India as far as biking is concerned. But for kayaking, there's still very little. So then we said, okay, you know what we need to do? We need to solve this problem. So we need to make equipment available in India. So that is how GoodWave became like a school and a shop.
Right.
So if you've learned how to kayak, then what's the next step? You want to invest in your own equipment, right? So you just learn how to bike, and you've been renting a bike from somebody for a long time, and you say, hey man, I've been doing it now regularly. I think it's time for me to invest, so that also I can save money, right?
Right.
So that's when you take the next step. You invest in the equipment.
Correct.
So we basically managed to import those equipment and like just start an online store, so that people had an avenue. If they break a paddle, or if they need they need a new boat, we have it. We have an alternative.
Yeah.
It's still small, it's still part time. We still
Yeah.
do it, because we do it out of passion. It's not so much as a business.
Right.
Because like people ask me like, hey, why are you guys doing this? When it's so hard, because with all the customs duty, this, that. So I just say that if I don't do it, nobody else is
Nobody
going to
else
do
is
it,
there,
right?
yeah.
So that's the only reason that keeps us here, that somebody needs to do it, right? Might as well be us, because we also want to go kayaking, and we also want to see the sport grow, right? And it's also for a selfish reason, that if I break a boat tomorrow, then and if I want to go kayaking day after tomorrow, I don't have a kayak to go to, but now at my shop, I'm set, man. So that was one of the big reasons that we started this model of a school and a shop, right? And then we tried to get more and more people into the sport, like by teaching them and saying, okay, here's the program, that how it is taught in the West, how it is taught in the US. So we're going to implement like similar safety protocols, similar operating protocols, that people can learn this in a safe way, so that they don't get intimidated by the sport. And then, eventually they will also join the group, they'll become kayakers like us. So now I think one of the big success stories of this is that the third partner at GoodWave, who's also, his name is Bhavpreet Singh, he lives in Delhi, who's also an excellent kayaker now, was one of our students.
Wow.
Right. So if you have one of your students basically become better than you,
Right.
then that's something that you give yourself a pat on the back for.
Yeah.
but yeah, so that is how GoodWave started.
Mm.
And then in 2012, we did a river trip in Kerala. That was the first river trip in Kerala. And this other partner of mine, Jacobo, he had discovered some, like looking on Google Earth, he had found these two river systems in this part of Kerala where we conduct our festival. The town is called Kodincherry,
Mm.
part of Calicut district. It's actually very very unique geography. So it's right at the bottom of the Wayanad Ghats.
Mhm.
So if you're standing in Kodincherry and you look to the east, you're surrounded 270 degrees, with the ghats of Wayanad. So all the range that comes on the Wayanad Ghats, it basically comes down to Kodincherry as the first town. So there are three river systems over there, right, where that you can, which are possible for kayaking. So we went there for the first time in 2012. And our first trip over there, when we were getting into the water, I think that was the first kayak trip that was ever done in Kerala. Nobody had ever, white water kayaked. I'm sure Kerala people have like a long history and love for, having boats on
The
the
boat
water.
sport, yeah.
Yeah, but nobody had like, taken a plastic boat, a proper white water boat, and gone up like some of the hard river rapids there, right? So when we were getting in, we were stopped by the locals at that time saying, hey, there are these rocks, and people die in this stream every day. I mean, every not every day, but every year, like a lot of people die over here. So what are you guys doing? You shouldn't go there. And then we were asking them, so there are many rocks, huh?
Right.
There's a lot of white and there's a lot of drops. And he said, yeah, don't go, don't go. And we were like,
That's it.
that's why we're here, man. So validated, right? So as soon as I mean, these set of villagers, they tried really hard, but moment they got in the water, they saw that how we were navigating, and they were like super stoked. I could see that, like from where we started, they started like getting their phones out, started taking videos and this that, and then we just started going down the river, and we separated from the road from where these villagers were telling us, and we kayaked that river for about 2 kilometers or so, and then that river was going under a bridge, and so when the bridge came into view, we saw like at least maybe 100 to 150 people standing on that bridge. And then the first thought in my head was like, oh shit, I think there is some trouble over here. Maybe that guy has alerted the cops, and the cops are here to arrest us. So, like, yeah, man, not again, right? So then we started talking among ourselves, like, what do we do? So one of them said, hey, you know what, let's just hide in the jungle for a bit until it gets dark. And then, once it's dark, we'll try to make a getaway, or they'll get just tired of waiting for us. So we pulled out just beyond the view of like the spectators who were watching us, and then we tried to hide. We saw a local fisherman, and one of the persons in the group, he spoke a little bit smattering of Malayalam. So he talked to this fisherman and then asked him, like, what are those guys doing there? So the guy says, oh, they're just here to see you. And it's like, what do you mean they're here to see us? I said, yeah, they just want to see, what you guys are doing. He says, like, and they're not here to arrest us. People said, no, there's no arrest, no arrest. It's like no cops and all. So he said, oh, cool, we're not getting arrested. So we just took
Basically became celebrities over there.
I mean, I've never been treated like that anywhere. To go from being arrested, to go from like getting kicked out, to like the welcome that we got when we actually went down that bridge, and people started cheering, started hooting. They were running alongside while we were in the water, and I don't know, it made us like really feel like we were $1 million worth.
Yeah.
So, and next day we were all in the papers, that there's a bunch of people who've come from somewhere. The Italian guy, the Indian guy, a bunch of Indian dudes who are daredevils, and so they obviously didn't understand the sport, but they saw us. They had these pictures of us like coming through the rapids, and they were in the front page of Malayalam Manorama and all. So that was that. I mean, it was a crazy kind of welcome. We were not like really expecting that at all. But that very evening, somebody from the district administration office called us, and they asked us, like, is there a tourism potential for something like this, right? Because is that something that we may have missed all these years, right? So we said, yeah, of course there is a lot of tourism potential for this, because these rivers are amazing. Nobody's discovered it, and to have a river like this, which is completely different from the rivers that we have in the north. These rivers are far more technical. They are steeper. They're a little bit more unpredictable. So the kind of technique that you can build on these rivers is like the next level, right? So that's the first discussion that we had. So why don't you all do like a event over here? Like you guys can run the event. The tourism department will support you to some extent, and you guys get it organized and just start the event and see from where it goes.
Nice.
So that is how it started. The first edition was run in 2013, and I remember there were about only 18 kayakers who came for that festival, and it was run on a budget of 2.5 lakhs, right? Out of that 2.5 lakhs, I think we paid almost 2 lakhs from our own pockets. It was about 50-60K of prize money that was finally given by the Kerala government, but we lost a lot of money in that. But I think that was the start, and then like the people who came from the north of India, and they kayaked these rivers. They said, "Man, this is like world class,"
Right.
So they were like, those people had been kayaking for a lot longer than us, and they had a lot more experience. So when they came and said they validated what you are doing, then you automatically got that fillip, like, oh, maybe you're onto something good, right? So that was the first validation, and then that was the first event that we did. In 2018, it was the unofficial World Championships, where we had about 15 of the best world kayakers who came down to participate in that festival.
Wow.
That was the biggest edition ever, right? And there were Red Bull athletes, there were some Olympians who were participating, and there were ex-world extreme world champs who were there. So pretty much the who's and who of kayaking showed up in Kerala in 2018. And now in 2023, it's going to be like the extreme kayaking nationals, right? So it's been designated as a national. So I think I take a lot of pride in saying this, that something small that we started with 18 to 20 people in 2013, like 10 years later, is now has got like the blessings of the Indian Olympic body to call
Wow.
this like the extreme slalom nationals. Also, one of the races that we've been doing all of these years, it has now made its way into the Olympics. So from 2024, it's actually an Olympic event. It's called extreme slalom, right? So, and that is like this event that we've been doing all these years, these 10 years at the Malabar River Festival. So which is why, because we've been doing this, because of the fact that we've been doing it for so long, and it has finally been recognized as an Olympic event, that the IKCA, which is the Indian Kayak and Canoe Association, which is the official Olympic body for kayaking, has recognized the Malabar River Festival as the first Indian nationals for extreme slalom.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a journey, man.
It's been crazy, man. Yeah, I'm particularly happy because for one, 10 years ago nobody knew about like the whitewaters of Kerala and what the potential were. And now all season long, there are kayakers there. There are kayakers paddling in the rivers. I'm sitting here at the podcast, and sometimes I'm working. I get these Instagram feeds of other people kayaking there, and I get the FOMO the fuck out of it, right? Because even 5 years ago, we were the only ones. If we weren't kayaking, nobody was kayaking in those rivers. But now, I'm so happy to see that people are just going on their own. They're like running their own trips. There are kayakers who are coming in from Rishikesh and camping there for 15 days to a month, just training for the event. Because they want to. Because one, the rivers are there. There's like solid quality of white water, and the fact that this is the nationals, and also because they're having a lot of fun over there. So that's yeah.
Amazing, man. So from a couple of guys and maybe like 3-4 guys going there in 2012 to in 2018 and starting it in 2013, and in 5 years, 2018, 15 of the best kayakers
Right.
from all around the world being there.
Mhm.
What made that possible?
So it was a lot of support from the Kerala government, right? They saw the potential, and we convinced them. So there was this one DC of that area who really saw that, okay, this is something that we can bet on. So it is about funding, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that if you like pour some funding, because in a lot of certain things, that when you're starting off, it's true, you have to spend money to make money, right?
Right.
Sorry for the cliche, but it is how it
Yeah.
is, right?
Yeah.
So he recognized that opportunity, and then we
DC
started
being district collector.
district
Yeah.
collector, right?
Okay.
District commissioner, district collector, or district magistrate, whatever
Yeah.
you call
Yeah.
it, right? So he was the one who recognized this, and then we put a proposal together saying, "Hey, why don't we pitch this as like the Extreme World Championships, unofficial World Championships?" And we just put a solid prize money, and the other thing that you need to do is you need to open up some of the areas for exploration.
Hmm.
So when people come, you need to like allow them to explore certain areas. So India's, a lot of parts of India are very, very conservative with access to forest.
Right.
Rightly so, because we've had a lot of problems with in the past with
Hmm.
poachers and unauthorized access, this, that. So we kind of requested them, see, this is in the spirit of exploration, and people want to come and the people want to explore these rivers from their perspective also. It's if they're doing something super hard where no man or no woman has set their kayak or foot in that section, and if they're able to run it, there is going to be a lot of people who are who that is going to be the lure for people to come down. Like, why do people go to Nepal, and why do people go to some of the, I mean, places where there's really good riding, or there are really good mountains? It's
Yeah.
because there is that thrill, and there is of going to a new place that you're unfamiliar with and challenging yourself. So all that is there. So that's also the case with kayaking. So that is what we convinced him to do, to open up certain areas to allow these teams to come. And there are many rivers which are not currently possible to do, in the sense, like the Indians right now, they are getting pretty good, but they don't still have like the skill level which is comparable to what people are doing to the rest of the world,
Right.
right? So there is only so much that people can do. So when people from outside come and they show you what is possible and what is not possible, it kind of opens your eyes to like to s- to like what can be possible, right?
Right.
So that is the exposure that we wanted. That is the exposure that we push for. That we want these guys to come and maybe tell us that if there is, show us, if this can be done, or if or this can't be done. Because we were at a stage where we didn't even that we were even though we are pushing our boundaries, we didn't know what the boundaries were and whether we are pushing them safely. So then to get that international exposure, I mean, level athletes to come down and then show you, like, what is really possible, and how you can approach certain things, just to learn from them. And that also has impacted the Indian kayakers, the people who do this professionally in India. It's made a solid impact on them, right?
Hmm.
Even the last 3-4 years, I see there is so much of change in the way that people are approaching the sport. They're just not approaching this as like something that they do for recreation, like, oh, let's it's the weekend, let's go kayak, right? People want to do it like 7 days a week. They want to approach this, they want to take part in festivals, they want to like go outside of India and compete in some of like the international festival, and people are aspiring to do that. And there are a lot of Indians who are aspiring to do that. People are picking up kayaking in Rishikesh and all from the age of 14, 15. So by the time they're 19, they're pretty solid, and they're, and like looking at these athletes, like the what an athlete needs to do is not just be an athlete off the river as well. When even then they're not training, they need to think like an athlete, they need to eat like an athlete, they need to act like an athlete in all walks of their life, right? If you
Right.
want to be world class. So that kind of mindset is, just been recently coming in because of the exposure to all of these,
Right.
these Red Bull athletes, these people who have represented their countries in the Olympics, won medals. So once you start observing them and you start hanging out with them, you really understand like what you need to do. I mean, given that kayakers are like a different breed, so even you get an Olympic athlete, after like an event, he's going to get as smashed as fuck, so and like have a great time. But it is the nature of the sport, I guess,
Right.
because you are constantly pushing your mental boundaries and you're challenging yourself. So so every now and then you need to be like a champion at a party as well, right? Where you can outdrink like everybody. So, but I think that's just part and parcel of like who they are. But that is what is happening with this international exposure, right?
So how did this also the an event in a place like that with the with the kind of support that the government is also
Right.
providing. How did that impact the locals and the local talent? How did
Right,
it grow
right.
over the years?
So local talent is still growing, I would say, but a lot of people from that town are great swimmers. They have a lot of comfort with the water. So kayaking is one sport where a lot of people ask me, can I do it if I don't know how to swim? Right.
Mm.
So I always tell people, of course, you can try to learn it. You can, as long as you feel you're going to be comfortable dunked in the water, the life jacket, it's all you need, because nobody really can swim, in a river, especially in a rapids. It's, even if you're the world's best swimmer, you can't control where the river is going to take you, right? So you have to learn how to understand the flow and really be try to use the flow to your advantage, right? Use the medium to advantage. So if you're comfortable with the medium, then it's something that will really help you with kayaking. So even then, if you don't know how to kayak, you can still, sorry, if you don't know how to swim, you can still learn how to kayak. But if you are a great swimmer, you come in with the advantage, right? You come in with the advantage. So the people who have grown around that town are amazing swimmers, and we noticed this because when we do these drills sometimes where we are on one side of the river, and there is a very strong rapid or current. It's called a ferry, where we try to make a move from one side of the river. We cross the current, and we try to cross it as high as possible, so you don't get, because the current wants to take you down. So one of the river running techniques is to be able to cross a current and to cross it as high as possible. And we were doing it in our boats, and then while you were doing it in the boats, we saw some locals just jump in their lungis, folded lungis, and they were doing it better than, swimming better than we were doing it in the car, right? So we was like, well, this is amazing, and these guys over here can swim, then they can make like amazing kayakers, because you're so comfortable with that medium. So that is how we every year we organize these training programs, and like even GoodWave, it's operating in Kerala. If there is a local who approaches us, and if the local is somebody who can't who's like in college or school, the classes are given for free. We don't charge anything, if this, because if you're a local and you're a student, if you're listening to this, GoodWave is open, whenever you have a free slot,
Amazing.
the kayak is available, you go and kayak, right? That is what it is. People are earning, sure, we charge them something, if they can afford it, but if they can't afford it, then we want to create more kayakers. So that town has changed a lot, right? Kayaking has put this town on the world map. So there is this lady called Chechi, who makes like lunch, dinner, breakfast for all of us, and she's this one woman show who runs this amazing restaurant called Grace Restaurant, and she's known world over, because she's like hugged, the world's best athletes, like she's got photos with them, and they've all come and like loved her food, so. And this town basically, is like has this identity because of the fact that this festival is held over there, right? And because of that, now there is a lot of monsoon tourism that has started, that people are, because monsoon used to be a lean season for them, but now because of whatever's happened with kayaking, it's that town has changed completely in a way, right? There is it's, I wouldn't say it has been the only reason. I'm sure it has been just one of the things that has pushed it, but the fact that something like really big happens there, and that they are proud to host it. So things like some eat more and more places to eat coming up, more and more homestays coming up, and more and more, moment you have more homestays coming up, then it's a bit more advertising that is done by the homestays. So then there is generally more tourism that also starts to happen in that area. So but yeah, kayaking is like a really important part of the identity of that town right now, right? That this is something that happens.
Amazing. So how
Yeah.
how is like are there women in the sport, and how is that
Yeah, like
generation?
all adventure sports in India, there are far few women in the sport, right? Also, kayaking is a bit of a logistical exercise,
Right.
right? You need a car, and you need company. You can't like do it alone. So you need to have like you need to have some this wherewithal. You need to have like a certain level of income to be able to get into it, just to be able to afford like a trip regularly, because if you do it once and you stop doing it, then you're not going to be a kayaker. You have to like keep doing it. So in that sense, there are a lot of challenges, and then it's in this country, right? Just because it's because things are changing, but you just don't see a lot of women getting out to far flung places because of the obvious challenges that they face
Right.
just on a day to day basis, right from like getting onto a crowded bus or a train, all of that. So that way the number of women are still very very few, but again, we always try, the hardest to encourage women to get into the sport. As a rule, every year, what GoodWave tries to do is take in an intern, right? And the job of the intern is to help run the operations, be based in Kerala for these 3 to 4 months, and in return, we teach them how to kayak. We make kayakers out of them. So when you get like 3 or 4 months exposure to river time, and then by the end of it, if you're really interested, I mean, if you're fairly interested, you will come out at the other end being a kayaker. And we only offer that internship to women for the only reason that we want to create another women kayaker.
Beautiful.
Right, so that is our way of at least trying to get more ladies involved in the sport, right? And yeah, I mean, every now and then we try to maybe run our courses at like certain levels of discount, if there are women involved, and also to have like an intern, like a woman intern as part of the team, it just helps us be a little bit more empathetic to to like the because sometimes you have like one woman who is in a group of 6 people, right? Because the other six, because there's a batch of 6 people, you only have one woman. So we want to make sure that that person doesn't feel alone, because you always have that woman intern around, right? To give you some company. And sometimes we might miss some signals, if like a woman is in trouble or whatever, or things like even that time of the month, sometimes we may not even get it. So it always helps to have somebody that they can relate with, or some of the problems that they can relate with, right? So that is what little that we try to do to get more ladies into the sport. And it's a constant, it's I don't think we are also completely there yet. There's a lot that we can do, and there's a lot that we can also improve in our operations to enable this. So it's something like a work in progress.
Right.
Right.
So I read in one of the articles about this mother-daughter duo that
Right,
occurred.
right.
What's the story behind that?
So yeah, that mother and daughter, that was like these local paddlers, and this daughter started coming to us for kayaking, and so what we do is every year we tell the local the district panchayat of Kodincherry that hey, we're going to train 7 kayakers, and out of that, two compulsorily need to be women. So you tell us, who do you think is most deserving? So they run some swimming selections, blah blah blah, whatever. They have their method, and they send us like, okay, here are 7 people, now you train them. So we do like this weekly program, sometime either before the Malabar Festival or just after the Malabar Festival. The only condition here is that we are going to teach you, and you have to, once you finish the 7-day course, you have to compete in the Malabar Festival.
Right.
So this lady was called Rashmi, so she had learned, and now she's working as a nurse, and she's moved out of Kerala, but she was picking up the sport, and she was doing pretty good. And then I guess she used to talk about it a lot, and she used to be very stoked about the fact that every time she went into the water, that her mother kept hearing stories. And she said one of the next year when we organized the course, she just showed up and she told the guys that, hey, look, I need to be one of the 7. I don't care what your selections are, but I'm going to learn the sport, right? So yeah, we signed her up. We were very happy for her to like join the course, and we took a lot of pleasure in teaching her. She even competed at the Malabar River Festival, right?
Mother and daughter
Mother and
competing
daughter,
against
like,
each
yeah, it was the first mother and daughter that to ever compete at a festival like this, right?
Beautiful, man.
That was, yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. So, and if someone like someone in the say Bangalore, or someone interested in the sport,
Right.
how do they even get started in a sport like this? We don't have any rivers here.
Yeah, we got no, unfortunately, we got no rivers around Bangalore.
Yeah.
There are many sections around Bangalore, like within 100 kilometers radius. You have the Kaveri section. We used to run that quite a lot, which is about 100 kilometers from here. You have decent class 2 to class 3 rapids. It's not like the hardest river around,
Right.
but it is a river for where you can go and train and you can be in touch. For Bangaloreans, basically, this is the best time right now when it's raining. You have four or 5 months of a year where you have access to quality white water.
Yeah.
So if somebody from Bangalore wants to learn the sport, we are there to teach them. So they need to take a trip there, spend 5 to 7 days doing a course. The longer course that you do, the better it is.
Yeah.
In 7 days, you're not going to become a kayaker, right? But
Mm.
it's going to teach you the fundamentals, going to teach you some of the basics. At the end of 7 days, you will know whether you want to pursue it or not, right? So that is the determination that you will have. And if you think that you can do it, then we have gear that you can rent from us. So even before you
Commit.
commit, you can
Yeah.
take some boats and just go kayak, get into the water, like whenever in those 5 months that we are operating in Kerala. Then once the season stops, then every month we organize some kayak trip or the other.
Mm.
There is the closest river that we have in the summer season is the river in Dandeli in Kali River,
Right.
which is about 6.5 hours drive. So once a month we organize like a 3 or 4 day long weekend where we whoever's learned and who has necessary skills can come out and practice with us.
Right.
And then if then you have quite a few kayak schools now happening in the north as well, right? So there are a couple of kayak schools in the north that operate when we are not operating, because when the season ends over here, then the season Rishikesh starts. So there are some really nice instructors there, right, who are focusing on kayaking. So if you've learned here and you want to practice, you can go there and do a course. So now kayaking is picking up all over India. It's like it's already happening in Ladakh quite a bit. It's happening in Rishikesh. It's happening in Meghalaya. Meghalaya is really picking up. We are getting
Nice.
calls from the Sikkim tourism as well to come and explore their rivers to see if there's a possibility of what can be done over there. So it's suddenly starting up in a lot of places in India. So I think and we have the natural resources. We have the rivers. So we just
Yeah.
need like more people to go and access them and to run them.
Nice, nice. So what kind of fitness levels do one need to kind of get started in a sport like kayaking? Or
To get started, you don't need to have any much fitness levels. If you can walk like 5 kilometers a day,
Mm.
you can get started, right?
Right.
That's like the only thumb rule. You should be not hydrophobic. You should not like
Yeah.
get freak out. If you think that water like really freaks you out, then possibly it's not something that
You want to be.
you want to
Yeah.
be in. You want to like maybe condition yourself before you come. Kayaking, like unlike like some of the adventure sports, is way more mental than it is physical. So
Mm.
there's a very strong mental aspect to being and that you discover while you're kayaking. You also learn that for yourself, and there's a lot that it teaches you about who you are. But in terms of fitness, just to get started, you don't need a whole lot of fitness. But again, if you want to be a world class athlete, then you need to be.
Right.
Then you need to like once you are pushing, competing in festivals, and you want to represent India, or you want to take part in these festivals where you want to be in the pro category, then of course you have to have a certain level of training. You have to improve both your technique and your physical fitness as well, right? Your endurance, your strength, your flexibility, all of that.
Yeah.
It's similar to any other outdoor sport that is there out there, right?
Right. So what is the kind of path for a kayaker who wants to take it seriously and say compete outside or something?
Right. So yeah, there are two paths. Either you can be a weekend warrior. You can say like, okay, I love doing this, and but there's only so much time that I can dedicate to it. So, and I'm only going to do it 2 times or once a month or whatever. So that we call your typical weekend warrior.
Right.
And then if you want to get into the competitive circuit, then again it's like a long road, right?
Mm.
It's best to start as early as possible when you are in your teens or even before that. The best athletes that you see around the world, they've started
Yeah.
kayaking when they were 8 or 9, that kind of stuff. So but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't start, even if you thinking starting at 15, 16. But like any other sport, it's about the exposure. It's about how much time you spend, right? Like you are like a road athlete, but most of the time you spend working on your indoor trainer, right? Because it's repetition, and you do it like 100 times, 1,000 times till it's mindless repetition. The same thing with kayaking. If you want to be an athlete, it doesn't mean that you need to have access to whitewater 24/7, 365 days a year. Most of like the top whitewater kayakers in the world, they do a lot of flat water practices. Find a flat water body and they just paddle, because it's all about improving your paddling technique, right? Building those muscles, and then whenever you have access to whitewater, sure, then you need to get into whitewater, the actual environment, because that's like a different skill level. There's a different mental game as well. But like the repetitive, like the basic, the core, the 60%, 70% is what you can do, in your backyard, right? So there are, if you really want to do it, there are many avenues. Like Bangalore has a lot of water bodies around. You
Right.
travel 20,
Yeah.
30 kilometers out of Bangalore and you can still find plenty of river bodies.
But even there are plenty of lakes too if you just want to paddle and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
There are plenty of lakes that you can paddle, and then there is an academy in Madhya Pradesh right now, which has like an artificial slalom course that runs pretty much throughout the year. In Meghalaya, they have an artificial. I mean, they're working towards building a slalom course that is there. The Ganga is always running. It's right now it's quite high. The monsoon season is not high, but when our season is off, their season is on. So it's complementary to each other. So you have avenues everywhere. So if you want to train, you have to. If you want to get there, there are ample opportunities, because right now in India there are at least three major kayak festivals that are happening. There's the Ganga Kayak Festival that happens in Feb, the Malabar Festival that happens in July, August, and then you have the Meghalaya Kayak Festival, which happens in October, November. So now you already have that circuit, right? And all of these festivals see a lot of international paddlers also come, right? So where you can, gauge yourself and you can compare yourself. And some of these attract, like Meghalaya festival that we did last year, that also had like an amazing field. It had the ex-world champion, who was the current and the ex-world champion. They're both competing. There were a few Red Bull athletes who were there. Noria, this lady called Noria Newman, who's also like they considered as the world's finest extreme and expedition kayaker, Red Bull sponsored athlete. She was there at the Mega Kayak Festival, and she was racing with some of like the women from Rishikesh, right? So there is a lot of that diffusion of skills that is happening because these people are here and they're coming to India. And India is also now being seen as a place for a lot of undiscovered whitewater, right? Which is attracting a lot of this talent from abroad to come in and just to get a different experience and to paddle something that they haven't paddled before, right? So that way there's a lot of opportunity for somebody if they want to get into the sport. There is an opportunity, there is a path. It's not easy. It could be, we are very, very far from where we can say that yes, we have everything set up how it is in the US or in Europe, but it's there. It's there is a start.
So you talked about slalom and what are the kind of races, different events that different types of races that happen in kayaking.
So kayaking is like actually it's like a word like biking, right? So it can mean many different things depending on what you are doing. So similar to what you have in biking, you also have in kayaking. You have races that just happen in flat water where it's more a question of speed, and you have speed and strength and endurance, right? Which are long races, 1500-meter, 2500-meter, flat out sprints, that kind of races. Then that is on like one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum, you have these extreme races where you launch from a ramp and you are into white water, and then basically where it's a confused mess of water. It has some obstacles, natural obstacles in forms of rocks and all of that. And it also, we put some gates in the water where you have to mandatory like go through those gates, right? So that is known as extreme slalom. Slalom just means to wiggle your way around some gates and all of that, right? It comes from the skiing slalom. That is the terminology where it comes from. Then you have canoe slalom, where it is, the boats are slightly different. They're built for speed and agility, but not for strength. So they're made of fiberglass. So that usually happens in like slightly mellower rapids, but it happens in moving water. So that's like in the middle, right, where there is a combination of both skill and strength, as well as your flexibility, your reaction time, all of that counts. And also, you need to have some experience with whitewater. I mean, you need to have a lot of experience with whitewater, right, to be a good slalom athlete. So what we do at the Malabar is basically one event that is that is going to be introduced in the Paris Olympics 2024. It's called Extreme Slalom or X Slalom, where four people they launch down a ramp in plastic boats, and then it's like it's a sprint which has a lot of these mandatory gates. So you have four kayakers, they can argy bargy against each other. There's no hand and paddle contact allowed, but with the boat you can push the other paddle out. So it requires good technique, it requires good power, good requires like being able to judge where you need to be, and a lot of luck as well, right? Because you can be in the lead sometimes and the three other kayakers they hit your boat, and then they can totally mess up your line. So that is the event that we are going to do, that we've always done. And the second event that we do is more towards the extreme sport of the it's towards the extreme side, so we call it the downriver time trial. So this, you have just a flat out section, either class 4 or a class 5, like a really hard scary section, and you're supposed to blast that like a downhill race, like a downhill mountain bike race. You start from one end, and then you just blast down, choose whatever line you want, and then the fastest guy who makes it to the end, everybody goes one by one. It's like a time trial event. So whoever has the fastest time is declared as the winner. So we have both of these kind of events that happen at the Malabar.
Nice, nice, amazing. Now, since I've seen you, in mountain biking gear and
Right.
mountain bikes, well, let's talk a little bit about
Sure,
that.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I started mountain biking because I wanted something to do when I was not kayaking. So that was my entire motivation. That I used to find myself like being very unfit at the start of the season.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey man, it's not gonna work, because I'm somebody who hates the gym. I kind of like I don't like something that is that becomes a routine. It's not my style, right? So I'm just not that kind of a person. So I really I thought, okay, maybe I'll try mountain biking and see where it goes. So I had no idea like how to even get into the sport. So the first bike I picked up was a stupid, I mean, okay, I'm not going to use that word, but it was an XC bike. It was not something that, and I grew out of it like really fast, because once I started like trying to learn some skills, and so it's not the bike that I want, right? So I need a proper, either a trail bike or a full suspension downhill bike. I don't want to sound like a snob here, sorry, but yeah, that was not like my cup of tea, like just to do laps around a flat field. I wanted some gradient. I wanted to throw myself into something that mentally challenges me, like whenever I do get out, because that's like my motivation of getting out. So that is how I picked up mountain biking, right? That just as an avenue to like keep fit. And then, yeah, I mean, because I'm an addictive personality type, right? So I got fully engrossed in it. And yeah, now I ride with all these Bangalore dudes. Been trying to. I don't want to do the same thing that I've done with kayaking here, because I'm actually enjoying my mountain biking a lot. So I don't want to like take on the additional burden of like starting a training program and starting what we did with GoodWave. People keep asking me, so is there something happening with mountain biking? Are you going to establish an academy? Are you going to establish some competitions over here? Like, fuck no, yeah, fuck no. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying just being on my bike, and Bangalore has like some nice terrain, right? We've seen each other on Nandi, and you have the same sort of problems at the end of the day, like forest department, this, that, and elephants. The last time I got arrested actually was in Ooty, because I was trying to go down a trail which was a forest department trail. So I was like, damn, I've been here before, this is not good. So now it's excuse me, now it's for mountain biking now. So it was had a lot of deja vu memories there, and even Jacobo happened to be there when we got arrested. So like, man, yeah. But yeah, so I really just, it's just something like an avenue for me to get out when I'm not kayaking, and yeah, it's taken proper hold. So now I can't decide whether I'm a mountain biker or a kayaker, but I think I'll always be a kayaker first, and I like really enjoy it. I really enjoy like just getting out with, and it's the spirit is similar. It's like the group of people, they know that at the end of the day you're doing something which can be considered as risky, and how do you mitigate that risk is by becoming better, right? And just like keep on improving yourself, so that what other people might think is risky is something that is very normal for you, and that is
Right.
how that is the kind of mindset that you approach both of these sports, right? That you train and you work on your technique, you work on your skills, you you try to every day you try to do something different with your bike or your kayak, right? Something that you didn't think was possible 3 weeks ago.
Right.
And I think also it's overall helped me with my kayaking as well. I feel I'm a better kayaker because of mountain biking. And even when I'm and the time that I spend kayaking, when I go back to mountain biking, I feel I slightly improved as a mountain biker as well, because those are, they're not very, they're in the end they're downhill sports, because they're
Right.
gravity sports. So both of them have that in common, and then it keeps your mind your it keeps your mental levels, your intact, right? Your
Focus and
focus and
everything.
intact, right? So,
Mm.
and you work on a different set of muscles, and any kind of work that you do on your muscles always helps you become a better athlete,
Yeah.
or a better proponent of that sport, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah. Beautifully put. Man, this has been fantastic fun, man.
cool.
Getting to know about kayaking and river rafting and all
Sure,
that.
sure. Yeah, yeah.
And this is like you said, all of these sports kind of carry an underlying thread of similarity,
Right, right,
especially in our country where
right.
it is almost all of these are in a nascent level
Stage, right.
stage. And the kind of work you guys have done and are still doing with the sport to grow it,
Hmm.
it's been fantastic. I wish you all the very best for the future as well. And I really appreciate taking the time and sharing the experience with the Working Athlete podcast.
Cool. Thank you very much, and thanks for having me here. I enjoyed sharing my experience. I hope this can also inspire a few more people around, so that they can replicate the things that we've done, right? So that is the entire idea of coming out and sharing our experience. That, see, it is possible if you want to do it and you're really interested in doing it. Because at the end of the day, we've done it for selfish reasons.
Exactly.
Because
Yeah.
we wanted an avenue to go kayak, we wanted an avenue to buy equipment from, right?
Yeah.
And because of that selfish reason, it has driven us to like come to this stage.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, so you take away the excuse. So when people tell you that it's not possible, we want to show that, look, it
Yeah.
is possible, if you
Yeah.
just put your mind and heart. And there's a lot of hard work, there's a lot of like ass kicking involved, but then
Yeah.
it's to get anywhere in life or anything, you need to like go through that grind, right? So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool. Anyway, but thanks a lot for having me in this podcast. I what do you call it?
Yeah.
A
Working
webcast, or
Athlete.
so. I don't know what the millennials refer to it these days, but yeah,
Podcast.
yeah,
Yeah.
podcast. Right? Okay, this has some visual element also to it. Right?
Yeah.
It's not just so okay. Cool. I
Thanks.
enjoyed talking about experience, and thank you, man. So
Thank.
it's great that you run this, and that you're introducing athletes from Bangalore and from around who are in different walks of life, and specific to their sport. I think it just helps the entire community in general, right? That there are these people that they can connect with, and that there is this like-minded group of people who are finding their different paths to to what they are doing, right? Even Sohan and
Yeah.
you and Neil and Chentil, so they all have, all in a way, in their own way, have been path breakers and trail breakers, right? So
Yeah.
that's the kind of generation of athletes that we need. So I remember that I'll leave you this one story that before I go.
Sure. Yeah.
So we when we were starting GoodWave, we in fact went up to somebody and asked for some funding, to grow this funding. And this it's one of like the one of the investors, one of the big investors who've been in the news a lot in Bangalore. I won't name them,
Mm.
but they listened to our presentation, and they were really fascinated. It's like, oh man, your idea is great, and it's like, it sounds very cool. And they listened to the whole presentation, and they said, we're not going to fund you, because he said, in my generation, I don't see this taking off in India. Right? So I said, fuck that, man. I'm going to prove you wrong. So whoever, all of you guys are listening, you are the guys who are proving that guy wrong, right? That it is possible in this country. It is possible for this, even my generation or the next generation to follow, to have this culture of like exploration and going outdoors and doing what you do, right? It's not about like being a doctor or software engineer. you got to figure out how to balance that, with what with your passions are, and what brings like the bread home, right? So it's you got to do a little bit of both, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you don't get out and explore and do
Yeah.
what you really have to. So,
Right. It's amazing that you are able to do all this while still holding down a job
right,
and, earning your bread on the
right,
side. And, th- this, it just shows that, if you are passionate about something, you can create, the thing that you are passionate about.
right,
You basically, in my view, you basically manifested through your work what the kind of kayaking scene you wanted,
right,
right?
right,
Uh,
right.
that is amazing,
Yeah, thank
amazing
you,
thing.
man. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that sentiment. But yeah, it's yeah, I mean, you have to know what makes you really happy, right?
Right.
What puts a smile on your face.
Yeah.
So, and then you have to really decide for yourself that what is important. So, obviously, if I had like paid complete attention to my career, I would have been way further than what I am right now. So
Yeah.
that is a compromise that you have to make, because you're splitting your time among the things that you care about, and then you just have to figure out what you really care about and what defines you as a person. So you have to make that choice, and at the end of the day, if you're sleeping with a smile on your face, means you've done a good
Yeah.
job, and you have like a roof over your head, and you got like a Saturday morning to look forward to in your kayak or your bike or your ski or whatever. Life's good, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. Thanks, man.
Cool, man.
Wonderful.
Okay, thank you very much, man. Yeah, cheers.
That was my conversation with Manik Taneja. I hope you enjoyed that. If you are enjoying these podcasts and are finding them useful, please consider supporting the podcast by subscribing to it on YouTube as well as on your favorite podcasting app. It really helps. Also, supporting the sponsors of the podcast is a great way to support the podcast itself. Thanks again for your continuous support. See you next week with another guest.